This video is the nice basic squared root equations. I say basic. I know you guys will not think it's basic because you really do hate maths. But I'm going to break it down into little tiny steps. Hopefully you will get it. Now, I've made a note at the top. A squared root power, so we can call them both, can be a negative or a positive number because when multiplied, it's by itself equals the original number. Okay? Confused? I bet you are, don't worry. So, for example, 3 times 3 equals 9. Come on, you know that bit. Or minus 3 times minus 3 also equals 9. Because when you multiply a negative and a negative, it becomes a plus. Ta-da! That's all you need to remember. However, when I do these examples, I'm not doing it on the basis that you need 2 answers. So you would be asked, give me the 2 possible answers of this question. Now that's what would be put on the exam paper. I'm not going to do that. I just want the plus number, but I will show you how to write it if you feel cocky and you want to do plus and a negative, because at the end of the day, that is the correct answer. There is always 2 possible answers. So yeah, just be cocky. Put them in if you want to. So this is basic, yeah? It's not going to look basic, but it is, trust me. So we're following on from our algebra with our letters and our numbers. So I'm going to start with something super simple. X squared equals 9. Now, what that's asking you to do is square root this number, okay? Now, if you haven't seen it before, a square root looks like this. You know when we do the division, the bus stop method, that's what it looks like. The only difference is it's got a cheeky tick at the end. That'll come into play more in a bit. So, we need to know the square root of 9, which equals, we could put the x now. The reason why x is on its own now is because we've just square rooted the 9. So we've moved that square root over. And we now know the square root of 9 is 3. Now I have done this little table here. These are the basic numbers. These come before the time. These are the numbers that you should remember in your head. We have 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, and 100, which you can't fit on. But 100 is common as well. Let me just put 100 there. Okay, they're all the main shazams, okay? But what they all mean is this, 2 to the power of 2 equals 4. Okay, so that square root here is 2. Square root of 9 is 3 because 3 times 3, I've done the example here, equals 9. So we know that this is our square root. But like I said, it could be what? A positive or a negative. So what you do is you just put a plus and a negative sign. Okay? So we're now going to go to, what is it? Let's go to another basic one. Let's go x squared equals 64. Now, let's bring the square root over. So x equals the square root of 64. You will learn this in your head. So we know the square root of 64, let's look down our little chart, is 8. Because 8 times 8 equals 64. So our square root of 64 equals 8. And let's do another common one. X squared equals 49. So let's take the squared over. And the squared root of 49 is 7. Because the squared root of 49 is 7 times 7. Okay, so they're really basic. I haven't really given you much space there. I hope you get it. I remember if the question asks 2 possible answers, you're going to put a plus and a negative in front of it, and it looks like that. So this could be a plus or a negative if that question is asked, and this also could be a plus or a negative as the question would ask, because we know that a minus times minus equals a plus. Okay, so we know it could be a plus or a negative. I hope you understand that. So let's just rub those out. If you haven't written them down, just go back and pause, and we'll go on to the next one. So let's start from here. So we have, 2y squared equals 32. You're saying out loud, well, that's not what you just did. I agree. There's an extra step, but you need to understand the basics first. So we've got a number now. What do we do with that number? Any suggestions? Well, at the moment, it's attached to a letter. Now, can you remember in previous lessons I've done, when the number is attached to the letter, it looks like this. It means it's a multiply. Okay. Now we're going over the equal sign with this 2 first. So we need to get rid of the number first. So if that's a times, what's the inverse? Which is the opposite. Well, it's divide. So you've got to divide that 32 by 2. So we now have y squared equals 16. Do you get that? So we've done the inverse. Remember, it's attached, so it's times divide. So now we're back to the beginning. So all that was an extra step, one cheeky extra step to confuse you. So now we know the square root of 16. Put y there now because you just took the squared root over. And we know the square root of 16 is 4. Because 4 times 4 equals 16. So if the question says 2 possible answers, we know it could be a plus or a minus 4. Okay? But if it doesn't ask, you could just put y equals 4. Both the right answers, but you know, that's if you're feeling a bit cheeky by adding that one on. So let's do another one. 4x squared equals 144. So let's take that over and divide because it's a multiply. Let's do the inverse, the opposite. So 144 divided by 4 is 36. Now, you will get to know that 36 is a squared root. Take the square over. And the square root of 36 is 6 because 6 times 6 equals 36. So we now know that x is a plus or a minus 6. There you go. Okay. 5x squared equals 125. So we can do the inverse of times. It's divide. So we're going to divide this by 5. So we now are left with x squared equals 25. You will ping 25 as a square root because 5 times 5 equals 25. Let's take the square over. And our two possible answers would be plus or negative. Oh, I'm putting 25. I know you're shouting at me. I can hear you. It's not 25, is it? It's 5. There you go. So there's another common one. So what we're going to do, we're going to divide by 2. There we go. It's exactly the same as there. So we know just by looking at that when we take that squared root over, x is a plus or a minus. I did it again, look. It's a 5. It's a 5, honestly. Sorry, guys, got the sniffles today. Okay, so let's do another one. So let our way down here. I'm not going to talk. I'll give you guys a break. Just watch. Now, a 3 is another one, square root of 9. Especially if you're on foundation, you probably won't go up very high in the square roots. So basic, 9, square root of 9. And on foundation, you probably won't be asked for the 2 roots, the possible answers either. It will just be standard plus, but you never know. I'm not a teacher, so I don't know. 5x squared equals 320. Same again, divide by 5. X squared equals 64. Common number, we know 64 is a definite square root. Take the square root over. And we know by looking at this that the square root of 64 is 8, because 8 times 8 is 64. And obviously, plus or minus, 2 possible answers. And the last one, because I think this is plenty, isn't it, to be going on with. Well, I'll say that. Look at the state of that, guys. So let's go 2w squared. Remember, it could be any letter. It doesn't always be an x and a y. Just like to clarify, it could be an A, B, C, any letter. They're just commonly used, that's all. So we can divide by 2. We'll take our square over. And the square root of 100 is a plus or minus 10. And that's because 10 times 10 equals 100. So there's some really the common numbers here, okay? This is pretty basic, to be fair, but obviously not to everybody. This can be super confusing. I think the only thing you need to always remember is a little tip is your signs, how they can change the inverse. So when it's a minus times a minus, your answer becomes a plus. But if you were in a different situation, a minus plus a minus equals a negative. So there are different rules, and you do need to remember them, to be fair. Minus and a minus equals. Let's have a leave.